Columbia and their SQ library. Early releases of the Columbia SQ catalog featured a go bordering around the mini albums. Mini albums were reissued in this format. You see a smaller version of the regular album, and then you have this gold bordering with the SQ logo on the top left here. First one they are seeing. This is the introduction to the world of SQ quadraphonic sound. Let me get this right. On side 1, Michael Tolan narrates a demonstration of Columbia's SQ library. Starts off with the group with the music of Chase doing their number, Open Up Wide, which demonstrates the uses of quad, with the trumpet starting from left, right, in the front, and then back and left in the back, and then all around you. And so after two demonstrations of sound effects, including motorcycles and then dolphins, we next go into a selection from the musical company. Then we go into Morton Subotnick's Sidewinder, and then a piece from the album. You'll see it coming up. The four brass antiphonal music for four brass choirs, and then it's pop music from 10 Years After, and then there's a piece of Stravinsky's Pinicello, I think it's one of his pieces. Anyway, it's a very nice album. You can actually hear it in stereo also. Side 2's got selections from many of Columbia's SQ remixed albums, including Barbra Streisand's second rock album, which you'll hear in very shortly. Which you'll see very shortly. Okay, take 2. Okay, side 2 features selections from various SQ remixed albums on the Columbia label, including the Ray Conniff Singers, Barbra Streisand, Paul Simon, Miles Davis, and Andy Williams. So check this album out, and of course, as always, you can play this in regular stereo, or if you should happen to have a modern receiver, which with Dolby Pro Logic settings, you can hear it with those with results, but don't expect SQ. Don't expect the same quality you would expect if you had an SQ decoder. And of course, if you happen to land an SQ decoder and preferably something full logic, you'll appreciate this album. Now we go on to Barbra Streisand. Here's the SQ remix to Funny Girl. This is the later reissue. The first issue had this artwork by Bob Peak in a smaller format. The album covers smaller, and you have the gold bordering. This is a later reissue. Doesn't look like it's quad, but if you look in the back, you will see. You can see the SQ logo and the little text here, and you also have the Quadraphonic remix credits. And this is a very good album. This is more than very good. This is excellent. This is the only medium where you actually get the full-length overture. That's before the movie starts. You have second-hand rows playing in the overture, whereas the regular stereo and CD issues of the soundtrack album only have the standard regular version. The remix on this album is very interesting. It's got some echo But in SQ, you get this front and back feeling. For example, Barbra sings as Fanny Bryce in the front, and in the many of her tracks. In If a Girl Isn't Pretty, you have Mrs. Straykosh, played by Mae Questel, the voice of Olive Oyl and Betty Boop, singing in the back rear. Whereas you have Mrs. Meeker and Mrs. O'Malley, and of course Rosie Bryce, played by Kay Medford, in the front. Roller Skate Rag is basically the same thing, except when they have the tap dancing, you have the roller skating tap dancing going around you from left, right, and in the rear channels and back to the front again. It's a fun, unusual remix. Well, everything's basically remixed to quad. The two tracks of Omar Sharif have that front and back thing. You have Omar Sharif singing lead vocals in the back in You Are a Woman and I Am Man, and also Sadie, his part. The Swan's got a little bit of has some dialogue, spoken dialogue in the right after the first verse, which is not heard in the stereo version. This is a wonderful album. It's a wonderful album. I prefer this to the stereo version because of the extended overture and the remixes. And of course, we know Barbra Streisand won her Academy Award for Best Actress, tied with Katharine Hepburn for Lion in Winter. Now here's another Barbra Streisand album. This is her first rock album, Stony Inn, featuring the title track written by the late Laura Nyro, as well as Time and Love and The Femme Plan Man, plus cuts from Gordon Lightfoot and Joni Mitchell, and a couple of numbers from Randy Newman, who would later do Oscar-winning songs for Disney. Some nice albums. Remix is really good, except like with the Funny Girl soundtrack, a lot of echo. Sounds like an echo chamber. Remixes are different than the stereo counterpart. A lot of more instrumentation. Is the back. A lot of great music. Barbara's first attempt at rock. Her second attempt, Barbara Jones Streisand. Here she is in her glory. Originally, in the stereo version, there was a gatefold cover. This one doesn't have it, but it's got remixes. And she does songs written by Carole King, Buddy Johnson, and two numbers written by John Lennon, the late John Lennon. Another song, I Never Meant to Hurt You, by Laura Nyro, and then one Burt Bacharach medley we did with Howell David, One Less Bell to Answer and A House Is Not a Home. This cut is I would say one of the highlights of this album, because remixed in quad, you can hear Barbra Streisand singing in both front and back. If you have Pro Logic or SQ, I highly recommend you pick up this album and give it a shot. Now, her concert at the Forum didn't really have much of I didn't notice any unusual or spectacular SQ remixes as the stereo version, but there's some extra dialogue in one of her when she talks on side 2. There is. Notice the covers are getting bigger. They're about to phase out the gold bordering here. In the monologue section, she says more than she does in the stereo version. But everything else is basically the same. It's a good album. It's worth listening to again in quad or surround. And we go to here's one of the. And next we've got Barbra Streisand doing The Way We Were, no title. But you notice the Quadraphonic, there's no gold bordering, but you got a little mention of Quadraphonic at the top left, right hand corner. This is where she records the title track from the movie she starred in with Robert Redford. A lot of great tracks, including one cut from Stevie Wonder and What Are You Doing for the Rest of Your Life. And there's one song, The Best Thing You Ever Done. I've learned that track was actually originally part of the Owl and the Pussycat, but from 1970, but it wasn't included. Nice album, remix is perfect. A lot of more instrumentation. The next album, this is not an SQ, but rather a CD4. This one was hard to find. This is the sequel to Funny Girl, Funny Lady, mixed in CD4. This stars Barbara, James Caan, with Roddy McDowell, Ben Vereen, Carol Wells, and returning as Nicky Arnstein as Omar Sharif. And interesting, this is released on Arista Records, which Miles Davis, who was president of Columbia, created a brand new label. The remixes on this album are different than the stereo version, a little more vocal and performances, possibly outtakes. Really nice score. The movie was really good. Really good. A little more, shows a more mature and more edgy Fanny Brice than we saw in Funny Girl. And like the stereo version, it still has its beautiful gatefold cover, all the photographs from the stills of the movie. So you got a little inner sleeve to describe what Quadraphonic is in CD4. Yep. And that's about it. Next artist I've got is Johnny Mathis. Yeah, Johnny Mathis, the first album I have is Sung Blue. Obviously performed and written by Neil Diamond, along with Play Me. He also does Alone Again Naturally, Where's the Love, Lean on Me, Run to Me by the Bee Gees. My mother, rest in heaven, was a fan of Johnny Mathis. There he is. Remixes are very good. Sounds really great, either in stereo or quad. Quads mixes are great. The lineup, the songs he covers were hits in the 70s, but 72s. You know, he does covers for the Carpenters, the Bee Gees, the Rascals. There we go. And our second one is Me and Mrs. Jones, the second, another cover album. Does the title track, performed originally by Billy Paul. He also does Summer Breeze from Seals and Croft, Winter Me, Summer Me, performed by Barbra Streisand. Of course, this is not part of the album originally. A lot of great stuff from the covers and nice jacket. There we go. And you can notice the gold bordering smaller now. It's got the SQ logo down here. And we've got a final album by Johnny Mathis. It's I'm Coming Home. A lot of R&B covers here, including Stock Look and Listen to Your Heart, the title track, and many others. Here he is, and there's the Quadraphonic mentioning up there. A lot of great R&B music here in Quad. Now we go to Andy Williams, the late Andy Williams, who did all those wonderful Christmas songs and TV specials. He performs the lovely theme from The Godfather. He also does Imagine, an old-fashioned love song performed by Three Dog Night, and he does a fantastic but short version of MacArthur Park. His cover version is heard on the intro to the SQ album I showed you earlier. There we go. Remixes are great. Songs are fantastic. And we got another one, So Easy on My Mind. This isn't gold bordering, but this has, there you go, the quadraphonic mentioning up there. And he does a cover of Olivia Newton-John's I Honestly Love You, and also does a cover of the late Jim Croce, I'll Have to Say I Love You in a Song. Looks like this sounds like mostly country songs or easy listening. And the background vocals are done by the National Edition. Great album. I have to hear this again sometime. Now we go to Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And this album is very good. It's mostly their big hits. The little bad note I don't like about this album was the short versions of their hits, Spinning Wheel and You Made Me So Very Happy, co-written by the late Patrice Holloway. The remixes are really great in this one. You also have Go Down Gambling, I Can't Quit Her, and When I Die, written by the great Laura Nyro. I wish he should have recorded some SQ albums. Eric. This one's hard to find in SQ. Eric. And next I've got another Oscar winner, Liza Minnelli, going from Broadway to pop with the singer. I've had this in stereo, but this SQ version is mind-blowing. She performs the song You're So Vain, written and performed by Carly Simon, who you saw earlier. Along with the singer, which sounds the title track, she also does You're So Vain, written by Carly Simon. She also does a fantastic version of Dancing in the Moonlight and Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me, Where Is the Love, I Believe in Music. So much. You're the Sunshine of My Life, Use Me, so many pop standards. And her vocal arrangements were done by the late Marvin Hamlish, and produced by Cher's music producer at the time, Snuff Garrett, and arranged by Al Capps, who also did Cher's stuff. You know, Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves, Dark Lady. Now I've got Chase, the group that opened up the introduction to SQ. This album is fantastic. It's like pop jazz fusion. The opener, Open Up Wide, has been heard on many Columbia quad demo albums like the one I mentioned. And the SQ mix is just totally mind-blowing and fantastic. Almost a little gimmicky at times. At present, you can actually get this on iTunes, where you won't get this. I think it was released in stereo, but then other releases were in SQ. On CD, you can get it's by default on SQ, and even the iTunes download is SQ remixed. And this is on Epic, not Columbia. Great album, great tracks, lots of brass in this one. Overall, great. Unfortunately, I learned about the sad fate of this group. All the members crashed succumbing to a horrible plane crash. Next, we got some instrumental music or pop. This one we've got a non-gold border album. Percy Faith doing music from Chinatown. The Entertainer from The Sting. A piece from of Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells used in The Exorcist, Midnight at the Oasis, What Do I Do from The Great Gatsby, and a couple of originals he composed. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if that meant 1, 2, 3, 4 in quad for quad, or and also. There we go. This was released in a previous album called The Entertainer. They just reissued it. There we are. And we've got Ray Conniff and his singers doing some great covers. We've got Song Sung Blue, The Candyman, Because, Day by Day from Godspell, Where Is the Love, Run to Me from the Bee Gees, Brandy. And I learned recently that many of Ray Conniff's singers were the Ron Hicklin singers who did all the great theme songs from the 70s, including Charles Fox's Love American Style, as they were actually called the Charles Fox singers. There we go. Great remixes on this one. Next, I've got the Grammy-winning album Switched on Bach. This is the SQ remix, performed by Wendy Carlos with help with Benjamin Folkman. Now, this SQ remix is, you have to actually hear it. My honest opinion, I think the stereo version sounded a bit better than its XQ mixed. I don't know, it sounds oddly remixed. The only track that works well is the two-part invention in F major, which actually it goes around you. But overall, it's not bad, but it's not a good mix either. Not like the stereo version. So there's not much to say about this one. But I've got something to say about this piece. It's a 2 LP set. It's this Leonard Bernstein's Mass. Now this sounds great in quad. It was originally in stereo. It's got Alan Titus as the celebrant. And this was performed at the John F. Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So you've got, actually has like the stereo version, it doesn't have a gatefold, but it's in the box. It's got the libretto and lyrics. The additional texts were by Stephen Schwartz, who did Godspell, and also Leonard himself. Little photographs. Everything's sung in English and Latin. Bit of classical, bit of blues and rock. The choreography was done by the late Alvin Ailey. There we go.